Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Let's Talk series. I am Dr. Carrie Nevin, a doctor of clinical psychology and a wellness coach certified by the Mayo Clinic. And I have a passion to talk with people who are uplifters of mental health and mental well-being. And I have got the most special guest today that I am so excited about. This is Rochelle Weinstein. She is a USA Today and Amazon best-selling author. She is the author of 7 novels to date, including her most recent, What You Do to Me. She is currently working on her 8th novel that is going to be coming out in February of 2025. And I am just so excited. I can't wait for that book to come out. So let me just talk a little bit about the origin of how we got here today. I'm part of a book club, and I had the distinct pleasure of attending a discussion with Rochelle to talk about her 5th book, This Is Not How It Ends. Not only was this meeting enlightening to gauge your process, Rochelle, but your openness to talking about your own personal experiences and how they influence the development of the novel was just so inspiring. I think your candor and your infallibility just really surprised and delighted me. And this led me to where we are today to invite Rochelle to have another conversation that's a little bit more personal in nature and allows us a window into your soul, which I feel very privileged to have. So today's discussion will provide an opportunity to appreciate Rochelle's creativity and her unique approach to writing and how this all goes towards supporting mental well-being. So the reason why I started the Heartlight Book Club, as I've told you a little bit before, I was so interested in creating more connections. And I was on vacation with my family in Wisconsin, reading a book, and I happened to look up and saw a woman in front of me reading the exact same book. So it immediately like sort of ignited something in me, like, I've got to talk to this woman. And the two of us were like, it's like, let's process it. So I thought, I want more of that in my life. I'm going to create a book club. And Rochelle's sister-in-law is a part of our book club. And wow, this is how we got here today. So thank you and welcome. Thank you. So let's get
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Carrie, I'm delighted to be here and I'm watching you, and you are beautiful inside and out. I'm sure everybody out there knows that already. My limited time with you, I could already see that. But I'm listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, when people say to me, what's your favorite aspect about writing? Yes, the book stuff and all but the connections, it's those connections that when you touch one human being, it really is, to me, that what we all have different ideas of what measures success. And maybe I'm jumping right into something we may be talking about later, but this connection to me is invaluable. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I so appreciate it. And there really is nothing like it. There really is nothing like the spark that happens between
Right.
people who share path. It's like the
Correct.
pull in the pond that keeps it
Yep.
moving. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. So I'd like to start off with this first question. What circumstances led you to realize that you wanted to become a writer?
Interestingly, I never really knew that I wanted to be a published author. It was more that I had I had a passion for writing and journaling when I was young. And what's interesting is that I'm going to go right into mental health right away. I was the baby of 4 kids and my parents were divorced. And I say sometimes that my life was full. When you have 4 kids, the house is always full and crowded and noisy. But at the same time, I was lonely and I was alone. And I think that my parents' divorce really had an effect on me. There were some deep-seated emotions at the time that I didn't know what they were. And they were, by the time I was 8 years old, I had my, what I now know was one of my first panic attacks, which was interesting because, and I didn't tell anybody about it, but then I started writing in a journal at 10. So there was something very early in me knew that, writing was a safe space for me and that I needed to get these thoughts, feelings, emotions, whatever it was. And sometimes it was pure garbage. Sometimes it was like, who did I have a crush on that week in elementary school? It's like, I like this boy. Like I used to put, I rate my days A+, the name of the boy I had a crush on. But anyway, I knew at that moment that writing was an outlet for me, and I loved writing, and it just was such a place for me to hone in on those really deep feelings. And I'm thinking that it saved me a lot of ways. So I was a journal writer, never thought I'd be a published author. I didn't think I was good enough, never went to school for it. And I just kept going on and on and on. And I wrote in my journals till I was, interestingly, 21, when I finally told my father, of all people, interesting, that something was wrong with me. I thought it was a medical condition. I thought something was really wrong with me because I was having these like weird feelings, weird thoughts, these symptoms. And that's when I finally went to get help. And interestingly, that's when I kind of weaned off of my journal writing, when I went into therapy.
Mm.
And then fast forward, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, after years and years of, working on myself and whatnot, I ended up, I had a high powered job, and my company was bought by MTV, and I was in Miami, and they were moving everybody to New York. And I didn't want to go to New York. My husband didn't want to go to New York, and we stayed in Florida, and they gave me a year's severance. And in that moment, I had never not worked. I worked since I was 14 years old. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I always felt that I had this story in me, about a girl, and about loss, and about grief, and about, loving oneself, learning to love oneself. And that was my first book, What You Leave Behind in It. So it was very much like autobiographical.
Yeah.
I fictionalized all of those emotions, but truly it was like a lark. Like, that is truly how my career started. I didn't set out to be some best-selling author. I just was somebody who took my emotions and fictionalized them.
Wow. Yeah, that absolutely leads into the next question, which was how much of your, on your blog, people always seem to want to know how much of your stories are about you. And you had this beautiful quote that I so appreciated, and it goes like this quote: it's taking the emotions, the feelings, and the lessons involved in creating something authentic and unique, something that matters. And that is exactly what you did. And do you, like, when you were writing that first book, when did you know that you had achieved that purpose, that you had done that special thing that you do in your own unique way?
I have to tell you how many people, when they read that first book, how many people contacted me, emailed me, that I either changed their life, that, look, there was a father a girl who grew up with, a father who died when he was 4. He wasn't just an absent dad. He died when she was 4, but he died on her birthday. So she felt that he died because of me. Right. So there was some of those feelings of somebody leaving you because of you, and these feelings of self-worth and feelings of being, devalued. So I took, in What We Leave Behind, this girl had to learn to love herself, to truly be loved with mature type of love. We've all gone after the bad boys and those fleeting emotions and those highs and those lows. They're kind of like a drug. Mm-hmm. And the intimacy issues that some of us have faced. And to truly let somebody in and love you in a mature, healthy relationship, you have to love yourself first. So that whole entire book was based on that whole idea. And that was loosely based on my relationship, with a dad who wasn't around so much. And I'm not blaming him. This was just the situation. And,
Right.
and I was a young girl. So it took me how many years of therapy to be able to say, and I've accepted it. And my father's in my life, and we have a great relationship today. So it's just, this is just, our life. But from that book alone, I got so many people contacted me, emailed me, just about how it changed their life. And some people went into therapy because of it. Some people found their true love because of it. I mean, when I tell you, and also lastly, and I'm sorry, I'm very long-winded, I feel like.
Please. It's all good.
When my reviewers and readers and fans tell me that they cried their eyeballs out, I made them feel something.
Yeah.
That's when I know that I've succeeded.
Yes. Oh my God. And you so have. I mean, and I think when everything comes back to emotion, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's one of the reasons why I love psychology so much. And just sort of picking up the point that you made about learning to love yourself. Um, how do you think that impacted the manifestation of your panic disorder when you were very young? You know, how what was something like with regard to your relationship with your dad and dad not being around a whole lot, did that have any influence in your feeling less than?
Oh, sure. And I didn't feel good. I mean, we're going to use terms that like a child would use. I didn't feel good. I felt that I was bad. I felt that I had done something wrong. Very powerful feelings and thoughts for a young child who also had some instability, in her home,
Yeah,
and listen, it's funny because Melissa's sister calls it, benign neglect. My mom was working to support 4 kids,
right.
and in so many ways, being the baby of 4 and then having a mom who I saw working, like I learned to be independent. I learned to be self-sufficient. In some ways it was very healthy for me, to, have that type of a home environment. But emotionally, I was still really, there. My parents divorced and my dad left when I was in utero.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So listen, did it think, what was it me? Did he leave? Cause you're a young child thinks that way.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, those feelings, they manifested in not, and by the way, it's that line is thread through a lot of my novels.
right. Yeah,
That feeling of not being good enough,
right, right.
not being, enough.
Right. It's so powerful. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have this interview was because in the first time that we were talking at the book club, you were very candid about panic disorder. And I related with that because I too struggled with that. It started for me at age 12 and, worked, it was just always present into my 30s, but I didn't know what was happening to me.
Me
Like
neither.
I didn't know.
I had
Right.
no idea.
Right, and it wasn't something that anybody would have really talked about back then.
No.
Maybe I'm dating myself here, but, you know
I'm with you. I'm around your age.
totally. So, but I related very, very much to that feeling of not being good enough. My dad, who has since passed, really struggled with bipolar disorder, but of course, nobody knew what that was.
Right, right.
And it was something that it manifested through intense anger. So there was just a lot of fear, and then something happened, like I was reading out loud in class, and all of a sudden I couldn't do it. I couldn't
Yeah.
talk. And it was like this thing that followed me throughout my whole life. And I guess I'm really interested in understanding, how did you overcome it? Like I know you
Okay.
went into
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how did you
Remind me of everything I talked about in the book club.
Okay, good.
Because at our age, I don't remember. Okay, so I do remember. So like you, all of a sudden it was one day, like I couldn't breathe. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was dying. I was having like scary thoughts. Like I was like, what's wrong with me? Am I schizophrenic? Like, am I like going to hurt somebody? Am I going to hurt myself? Like it was things like I couldn't control. And I was so afraid to tell anybody, stigma, stigma, stigma. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to kick me out of the house. So I just, I lived in silence. And then you know what you do? You repress, and those feelings become so incredibly powerful because you're holding them in and you're not releasing them. And so it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse as I was growing up. And I had periods where I think I went months or maybe even a year without it. I remember writing in my journal, like, it's back. Like I never even talked about it. I would call it. It's back. God, please help me. Please help me. Please make it go away. Like those were like, I was like crying out for help. So then at 21, when it got so incredibly bad that I literally didn't think I was in college and I came home for Christmas break. Um, And it was so bad that I didn't think I could go back to school. I lost like 20 pounds. And, and then what happens is when you had a really bad anxiety, when you have a really bad anxiety episode and you're the doctor, you can get depressed. Like I was never, yeah. So I couldn't eat. Like I couldn't swallow. Like I couldn't get food down. I was just like, I was so hampered and I was so afraid. I was so afraid to like leave my house. Like, so I went and I was put on medication and I was seeing a psychiatrist, and I do believe in therapy and with I'm not like just go on medication. That's not me. I'm like,
Right.
you need to go on medication for your, some of the symptoms to be relieved, but you got to get to the root of the problem.
Correct.
So I believe in them in conjunction with one another. So I'm a huge advocate of therapy with medication. So I did that, but then, what ended up happening, I was 21. I went back to school for my last semester. I was starting to feel better and I let it go. That's what you do. You just want to feel good. And,
Yeah.
any therapist will tell you that when you're feeling good is the time to be in therapy, when you're strong, not when you're just having the crisis. So that went on for a couple of years. And, I know we talked about this, and I know that this is one of your questions. So in one of my books, This Is Not How It Ends, I mention, what was it? Kansas City, right? It was Kansas City?
I thought it was, was it Kansas City? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Kansas City. I should know this. I was getting married, and the stress, in times when I was stressed out, my anxiety obviously was, even if it was nothing to do with it, even if it had nothing to do with wedding planning, my wedding planning is stressful. And my parents were arguing, and my mom was like, I'm not walking down the aisle with your father. And they were fighting about money. And I was like stuck in the middle. And it was like all these deep seated feelings were being like, they were being stirred up, for the wedding. So I was having tons of panic attacks and anxiety before the wedding. And because I'm an overachiever, my company was like, oh, can you fly to Kansas City to see a client? It was like a week before the wedding. My therapist at the time said, therapists don't tell you what to do. They're the ladder that kind of like helps you get where you want to go. But she's like, I really don't think this is a good idea for you to travel, so close to the wedding. I think it'll be better for your mental health for you to stay home and be, things that were comfortable. And I'm like, no, I'm feeling great, or whatever. I go and I have the worst, most debilitating panic attack of probably my life. I was on the floor of a bathroom thinking like I was going to jump out the building. Like I was so scared for myself. And that's when I decided that I can't do this anymore. Like I can't do the dipping my toe in, taking my toe out, dipping my toe in, that I needed to take care of myself because I was getting married. Ultimately, I wanted to have children, and I could not live this way any longer. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to live like this.
Right.
And I made the commitment to go into intensive therapy. I didn't talk about this a lot at the time because people just would not have understood it. Like my mother would never have understood it. See, interestingly, my father is more of the psychological mind. He was in analysis for years. He was in therapy. I went into analysis for 3 years, 4 days a week. Okay.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that intense.
In my 20s, very few of my friends knew. My husband obviously knew. We could have bought like 6 homes with what we paid for. My husband was so incredibly supportive, and that's something for everybody to know, like to have a supportive partner. I mean, my brothers used to joke with Steven and be like, we understand if you wanted to leave her. But he was totally committed, and I did it for 3 years. And I think back, and that was in my early 30s, I would say. And I had little kids, and driving there was 20 minutes away from my house. It wasn't around the corner. When I think about doing that right now, I don't think I could do it. I just was so, I couldn't live like that any longer. When you get to that point in your life where you hit such rock bottom and you're like, I I still am sometimes amazed that when I hear myself tell this right now, I'm amazed that I did that for
It
so
is
long.
amazing. In your 20s is when you did this?
I did that in my I got married at 27. So that was the big, and I was back with my therapist and she said to me, she recommended it. She's like, listen, she's like, we've done so much work on and off for the last 10 years. And she's like, we're not getting to the root of this anxiety. And she's like, when she said that, I bawled thinking I'm crazy. I'm terrible. I'm bad. You hear that as a negative.
Sure.
But it worked. And when I tell you, so that was my early 30s.
Okay.
I'm going to knock on wood because I'm superstitious and that's the OCD and all of us.
I get it.
I have not had a panic attack since.
Amazing.
I mean, it's literally gone. It's
amazing.
literally gone. And I know triggers. When I was going through the most difficult times, I was on higher doses, but I'm on a 5 milligram dose of Lexapro. But I have to tell you what a gift I gave myself. And I tell my kids this, it's a gift you give yourself.
Yeah. And you were,
oh, wait. So about Kansas City.
Oh, right.
So
right.
I named so someone said to me, how did you come up with Kansas City for this book? It's so random. I said, because I paid homage to the place that ruined me, that I was like, I never want to go back there. I was afraid of it. If I saw Kansas City, I'd get jittery. Wow. Putting that in the book as a small little character setting was very cathartic for me.
Wow. And a way to honor what was this horrible event, but that you transformed. You chose to transform it into an opportunity to get alignment with yourself. And I think, wow, when you're talking about how to love yourself, what an incredible act of self-love to say, this is so hard, but living like this is harder than maybe facing whatever it is. And it seems to me that you were like ready to do it. You were like ready to receive the guidance, ready to listen to yourself and honor what was there. And I often use a little prop in my work with people. I wish I had it with me. I don't think I do. It's a finger trap. Do you know what a finger trap is?
Yes, it's that thing you put your finger in it.
Finger in, and then when you pull on it, what happens?
You're stuck. You're still not going anywhere.
You're stuck, correct. And so I use that as a metaphor for resistance, because what we struggle with and what we resist persists, right? So how, Rochelle, do you get out of the finger trap?
Well, you just said, one thing you just said is some people, I wanted to know what was causing it. Some people don't want to know. Some people are afraid. I think some people are afraid that they're going to find, I remember saying this to my therapist at one point, saying, I'm afraid I'm going to find out something about myself that I don't like. Like that's how they're almost like you were like two different people in your body. Like that's what, it's like, but how do you get yourself out of the finger trap? I mean, listen, I'd hate to say that it takes reaching a certain level of down to it's having commitment. It's having support from someone who loves you and wants to see you get healthy, not just you. It's hard to do this alone. It's wanting to change, so many people want to change the things around them. Yeah. And the first thing you have to do is change you. Yep. I mean, we always talk about, oh, you're never, should I say something to so-and-so? And well, is it going to change that? Are they going to change? No. So you need to change your reactions. It's you. It's up to you to get unstuck, but you have to want to get unstuck.
Correct.
And some people are also lazy and they want to take the quick fix. They want to pop a pill and there's other, we could go off on like what other ways people manage their stress, but they want to just mask it.
Yeah, they do want to mask it. And the metaphor for getting out of the finger trap is pushing in. You have to do the counterintuitive thing to actually get free. Excuse me. And so I use that as a metaphor for acceptance. Like you chose to accept, okay, even if it's like the worst thing, at least I'm going to know, at least there's an opportunity for me to have control and connect back to my power connect back to the truth. Like, no matter what it is, I am going
Right.
to go with it. And does it take a tremendous amount of courage? You bet. The Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz didn't get the witch's broom, and then suddenly he got courage. It was like he cried and whined the whole entire time, but he still did it. And I just feel like listening to somebody like you, if you look at you and who you've become, and you're this amazing author, and you're doing all these amazing things, and people can look at you and think she probably doesn't have any issue
Oh, yeah. I
whatsoever.
love that.
You know?
I get so offended, like when people look at me and they're like, oh, she's so lucky and she has it all and she's got this and she's got that. And that's why it's so important for me to tell people my story because, well, first of all, because there's so many people out there struggling and like they think everybody else has it so much better. And that the grass isn't always greener. And it's just, it takes hard work. And also one thing about like the therapy and the analysis and all that, it's often not, I mean, listen, there are people that have serious things that happen to them as children that are, that impact their lives. Okay. It's usually not one single thing. It's not like, oh, I went into analysis and I found out that, blah, blah, blah. It is literally layers upon layers and upon layers of deep-seated feelings about yourself, about other people, and having this really safe space to be able to just like, it's like what's that, there's a saying about peeling, not peeling it up, but like the apple, like getting to the,
yeah, you're going into the, yes, I know.
Core, whatever. So, getting deep in, and it just takes time, and it just really to get into some you have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable.
Which you know what, when I tell people is like, listen, you're already uncomfortable. Why not
Right.
lean in and get there and connect with your power so that you can have some
Right.
sort of control over.
It takes tremendous vulnerability, and some people just don't want to do that. Like,
I so appreciate that you just said that. I often think of Dr. Brene Brown, whose whole life was to talk about, the trait of vulnerability. And she studied it for a decade and found that, the people that are most willing to go and let themselves be seen are those who experience the greatest life satisfaction. And you used a word safe. That was sort of resonating in my head before you even said it. And it's so interesting to me that panic disorder is like on the other end of safety. There's no safety.
Yeah.
With panic, it's like I'm in trouble. I'm
oh yeah.
And
the sirens are going. It is
powerful. Listen, every time you perceive a threat, it is 1,500 biochemical events that happen to you.
Yeah.
This allows, moms who have kids stuck under cars to just lift the car up.
Right.
That's the level of power that we're talking about. So when you leaned in and accepted, okay, I'm doing this. Come hell or high water, I'm doing this. That's when you were given your freedom. That's when you earned your freedom. And that to me, it's an inspiration. And so I so appreciate you being so candid and sharing that, because there are so many people, myself included, that struggled with this and, toughed it out. But let's get to the root. So,
that you said tough it out. They say it's the strong ones that go into therapy and get the help.
10,000.
They're not weak. It's not a crutch. It's not being weak.
No, there's nothing.
It's being strong.
Yeah. And there's nobody in the world, and I tell this to the people I work with, I actually often, if they're open to it, will suggest that when they're feeling good, that they actually videotape themselves speaking to their future selves that are struggling, because there's no voice more powerful in the world than your own. And to be able to give yourself something when you're struggling that comes from you, that's a powerful technique. I've used it myself, and I find it to be really powerful because it gives me an opportunity to remember, oh, hey, there's another time that I wasn't feeling like this. I was feeling strong. I was feeling capable. I felt like I could handle stuff. So I really appreciate that little technique that I like.
But don't you think when you and I grew up, we didn't have social media.
No.
And we didn't have the comparison and, girls online, and we're comparing ourselves to, and I wasn't invited to that party. And it's just, I feel like there is a mental health crisis in this country, and a lot of it is stems from social media.
Yeah.
These generations are not communicating. They're just it's. I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about what we both have experienced with our own panic, and I can't even imagine what it would be like with the whole world watching, or feeling crappy, and then going online and seeing, your girlfriend's out for lunch and they didn't invite you, and it adds another dimension. So it's sad.
There's that dimension, and I feel like, and look, there have been times where I'm just like, I'm not going on Facebook. I'm just not doing
Right.
it. I'm not going on.
Yeah.
I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus because I don't need to see that. And I feel like the opportunity is to realize your power of focus. And what we want to do is leverage that to be able to give it back to ourselves. That's
Right.
that's a
Right.
typical
Right.
little game to
Right.
play. But
Right.
certainly a mission of mine, certainly when I'm working with, younger girls or young women, to be able to, let's figure out, how do we gauge that connection to power? And you're going to know it by how you feel. Like, that's our internal guidance system. We always have it. So if I'm looking at something and I'm feeling like,
Right. Right.
shift my focus, and that
Right.
reminder, I think that's the biggest thing with panic disorder, is like, you forget that you have power. You forget all about
Oh yeah.
you know? And so to have, somebody like you be talking so openly about, yeah, you know what? I struggled with this and I overcame it, and you can too. It's you.
I used to not be able to go out for dinner. Like, I used to not be able to go places where I had a panic attack because I was afraid that I'd have another panic attack.
Yeah.
So once like I was sitting at a dinner table and I had a panic attack, I was afraid to go out to dinners because I was like, what if I have a panic attack at the dinner table in front of people? So then I just stopped going out for dinner. My husband and I were like in our early, whatever, 30s, late 20s. And I just like, it completely strips you of power. You are at its mercy.
Yeah.
Avoiding things, just living in fear. It was exhausting. It was exhausting. But here's the thing.
You're not living under
We
those.
were all, but here's the thing. So many of my girlfriends say, I still can't believe you suffered the way you did because you always looked happy. You always were out. You always looked pretty, which, by the way, I hate that compliment. It's like I just feel like it just doesn't go near to who I am inside,
Right.
you know? So many people can't believe it because I was strong and I was able to hold myself together, and go out and put on that fake smile. And then I'd come home and I'd be like, thank God I survived.
Right.
And it wasn't like this 24/7. There was periods where you're
No.
completely are fine and you're not
Yeah.
suffering and whatnot. But then there's like just moments where it's difficult. And it's funny because, people see you, it's perspective, and people don't really know what's going on behind closed doors, like anything.
No, it's all perspective. And it really depends on which lens you're looking through that allows you the feedback of your emotions. And
Right.
I'd like to shift into talking a little bit about your most recent book, What You Do to Me. Okay, first of all, I can't get the song out of my head.
Sorry.
No, no, no. And I love it. I love it. I actually took the time to listen to the lyrics, and it's just such a beautiful song. And this is where I want to pull in your beautiful, unique vision and your creativity and what makes you unique. You have a fantastic playlist for I think not one, but two playlists for
Yeah.
that book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned on your blog that this book is influenced by the song "Hey There, Delilah" by the Plain White T's. And on your blog, you wrote, quote, "I love the song so much that I decided to set the book around the emotion and the lyrics, like creativity." So what I'd love to talk about is, can you discuss how this idea came to be, what was involved in putting those pieces together, and the relationships that were created because of the book and how it changed your life?
So music and writing, not just writing was a big part of my childhood, but music was probably right up there with it. And I felt when my words could not convey what I was feeling, I would listen to a song and it conveyed it perfectly. And I listened to music and I cried and it just really touched on some of my deep emotions. Some of I don't know if it was the melodies or if it was the words, but music has always had a big effect on me, my mind. So it really was taking the next natural step in writing a book about a song that I loved and a song that evoked so many emotions for me. It was Hey There Delilah by the Plain White T's. And believe me, I know there's a ton of amazing songs out there and, you know, yes. And I'm a huge music junkie and like, why did I pick this one? I just felt like it was, the reason I picked this one is because the story behind it, the real story sucked, to be honest. Tom Higginson from the Plain White T's was in a bar in Chicago and he met Delilah and she had a boyfriend and he said, I'm going to write you a song one day. And she's like, yeah, whatever. And he writes her the song and it becomes a Grammy nominated song. The song blows up. She still has her boyfriend. Some people called it like stalkerish and creepy. I thought it was one of the most romantic gestures in the world. I think to be able to express yourself through music or word is such a gift and such a talent and such an ability that I was just wowed by it. And I was like, but I really want to just make this a better ending. I want a better story. So I just reimagined the characters, the place. The book takes place in Los Angeles in the 90s, where I used to live, and Miami Beach in the 70s, where I used to live. And there's every chapter is a song title with a name in it, you know, because Hey There Delilah is a name. So you have Mandy, you have Amanda, you have Jack and Diane. So,
Yeah.
you know, I really wanted at the end of the book to tell the story of almost every one of those songs, but it was too timely and it would have made the book like 600 pages. But it just goes to show you that people inspire people, you know, to write about them and to show these gigantic emotions. So all these songs about people. So each chapter is a song title, and then there's tons of songs, you know, listed in the story. So there's two playlists, one of the songs within the story and then one of the chapter titles. And I just felt that, like I said, music and music and books, they transport us. They take us back in time. You know, they tug on your emotional heartstrings. So to be able to write a book about music, I felt like it was just like, it was the jackpot right there. It just was all the beautiful pieces coming together. So Tom Higginson, a friend of mine in the music business, knew him and he put us in touch and it was great. He always made me, he was always like the last minute guy. Like if we had a deadline of October 12th, he was like texting me October 12th in the morning. Don't worry, Rochelle, I've got this covered. You know, and I was stalking him, you know, I was like driving him crazy, but he wrote the foreword for the book, which was so incredibly beautiful. It's one of my favorite parts of the book. And it's just, yeah. So I met him and, you know, I haven't spoken to him in a couple of weeks. I haven't bothered him in a couple of weeks. I'm probably due to bother him soon. And,
Happy to have you bother him. I think that that's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this was just like the perfect, you know, recipe for music, words, emotions, transporting, you know, I just like a nostalgic glimpse into our past and love, a forbidden love. And I don't know if I said what the book is about. It's a Rolling Stone reporter on the hunt for the muse behind this famous love song. And What You Do to Me is the title song, which is one of the lines from Hey There Delilah.
Yes.
But we never say Hey There Delilah in the book. We use lyrics from the song, but we don't use Hey There Delilah. We use this song called What You Do to Me.
Yes. Yes. Well, you know, it's so interesting. You mentioned that you were nervous to like reach out to him. And I don't know, I always hear Oprah saying, ask for what you want, ask for what you want. And I actually was nervous to ask you. I just was like, I don't know. I talked to my husband, should I? I'm not sure if I should.
Of course.
And I always remember Oprah saying, listen, you can't get what you want if you don't ask for it. So,
Sure.
so you asked for it. And, you know, now you have this really lovely relationship. So what would you go back and tell your nervous self when you were like contemplating, oh, what should I do?
You know what? It's funny you say that because while you were just answering that, I think it's okay to be nervous. I think it's okay to be nervous as long as you see it through. I think that being nervous shows you care about something. It's like when you speak, I've never gotten to the point. I speak all the time at book clubs. I speak at temples and churches, and I speak at organizations. And, I used to get really, really, really nervous. And now I get a little tiny bit nervous. And someone said to me, if you stop getting nervous, it means you don't care. So I think it's okay to be nervous, a little nervous to ask somebody. But if it inhibits you or prevents you from doing the asking, then it's a problem.
Right.
I always say, be kind to yourself. It's okay to be a little bit nervous. But I teach a class in Miami at a university here, and I teach, future writers and authors. And there's always like around 30 people in the class. And I always say to them, here's my email address. If you need something from me, contact me. I said, don't be afraid. If you don't ask, you're never going to know. Right. And I always tell them, I say the same thing. When I say this at every book event, 2% of the people follow up with me. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, you have an author, you have her email. She will respond to you. Like, listen, she's not going to get you a book deal. She's not going to write you your book, but she's a founding board.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed at the people that don't follow up with questions.
I'm amazed by that. And I think it's a reflection, Rochelle, of people's doubt and inhibitions and maybe not feeling good enough.
Maybe.
And that's a beautiful thing to do here, to show up and say, you know what, this is a huge opportunity. That's how I perceived it. First of all, when we were even in the book club meeting and you were speaking, and then you were just so warm and candid and open, I just thought, I'm wanting to know more about her. She's somebody I want to talk to. And, I will say that ultimately, probably 99% of people that I've asked have said yes. And not just yes, but you know what? It would be an honor for me. Thank you for asking.
Sure. Yeah.
Be known, right?
So, to be heard.
To be heard, to be seen, to be recognized. And
yes.
I love all of that. So since we're talking about emotions and knowing what's going on in the world, how have you been coping with the emotions surrounding the war in the Middle East? I want to talk a little bit about, I understand some author friends of yours have gotten together to create Artists Against Anti-Semitism with one goal: to stop the hate. So
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about this mission, how you're...
Well, first of all, there's 30. Okay, so let me back up. Putting a book out during my book came out October 17th and the war started October 7th. So when I teach my class, I say, you can do everything right. You could check every box. You can have everything done. And then you give birth on 9/11, or you give birth during a war between Israel and Palestine. And that's what happened to me. It was a really weird foreshadow. And I went out for the first 6 weeks. Anyone who gets my newsletter probably just read this. The first 6 weeks, I was like, you know what? We need music. We need books. This is the time. We need an escape, and I really believed it, and I rallied. But then by the 6-week point, I hit the wall and I was like, oh God, this sucks. And, I talked to a lot of my author friends about words, and you see people on social media, like, I stand with Israel. I stand with Palestine. And then you see those words and everybody's angry. Well, because they automatically assume I stand with Israel means just go and kill innocent Palestinians and Palestinians. And being I stand with Palestine means let's go kill innocent Jews. I don't believe that I hope the majority of us don't want to see innocent people being killed. I think, and I said, we are wordsmiths. We need to come up with a way to show that I'm a Jewish woman. Of course, what happened on October 7th was just tragically heartbreaking to see. But at the same time, I don't want to see innocent people being killed, and it's just, and I think a lot of us feel that way. And I just feel like it was so tense online, and it was so upsetting, and it was so disturbing. And there's a lot of hypocrisy going around across the board. And being a Jewish author, I wondered, like, were people just not buying my books because my last name is Weinstein? Like, I was really going through some weird stuff in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then the girls started, like some of my closest author friends founded this organization. And to be honest, because I let it all out, they had asked me to be a founding author and I just couldn't do it. I was depleted in that moment. I was hitting the 6 week mark of the book. I was really upset about, just that it just was the worst time to come out with a book. And this was the book that I was the most excited about of all of my books. And I was a little bit like depressed about it. I was a little bit, upset, and I wanted to just like crawl into my little cave, and I was angry, and so I was asked to be on the founding, and I reluctantly, but I had to say no, because I had to and this is another thing, I had to take care of myself. And I felt like, oh my God, what's it going to say that I'm not on this committee? Are people going to think I'm not supporting Israel? Like, are they going to think, those things that go through your head? And then all my friends are together and I'm not doing it. But I think it's just really important to hear that little voice in your head, and it's more like a gut instinctual, like intuition. I knew that I couldn't do it. I knew that I just didn't have the bandwidth. And I also had just turned in my 8th book. So I had launched a book, did 6 weeks of like killing myself to try to make this book, shine in the middle of a war, which was exhausting. And then I turned in my 8th novel. So I was literally depleted and I just didn't have anything left. And knowing how to say no has been one of the biggest gifts in my 50s, to be able to say no.
Well, I feel like, when you have a candle and you light somebody else's candle, it doesn't dim your light. It
Right.
just brings more brightness. It brings more light. It brings more understanding. And I really feel as though that is what you are doing with your gifts and your talents, to be able to write, to be able to help people to feel, and
Thank you.
be able to be known. And I just so appreciate what you're doing. It's so inspiring. It's making me think like, well, I've always been wanting to do something a little bit more outside of one room with one person. I'd like to do something a lot bigger. What the world would that look like? And I don't have a clue as to what that is. But
No, but keep thinking about it. It'll come to you.
I think so. And it was a little bit of the birthplace for this Let's Talk series, because I just
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I talk with one person in one room or two people, but maybe this would be a way to like reach more people and share the light. And I'm so pleased and happy to be a recipient of you and your time and the way you
Well, I'm grateful for you, and I so appreciate you even thinking of me this way and inviting me here today. And I could chat with you for hours.
hours and hours. Well, let's
Hours.
do this. We'll end this discussion, and then you'll stick on with me just for a couple minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Weinstein, thank you, thank you.